Hello viewers, here is an SMC wood housing ceiling fan. Forgot to expand the studio prior to beginning the recording. Oh well. I picked this up at Habitat a while ago, it may have even been last year, and it was one of the fans. I've actually picked up a lot of fans here that I haven't gotten around to testing. This is one of them, and the reason being is because it came with this downrod. It's probably about 3 feet long, and I just don't have the means to test a fan hanging 3 feet down the ceiling. There's just too much stuff in here. So I haven't been able to test it because I don't have a downrod, but I want to use this fan in the bedroom, so I'm finally going to go on testing and restoring it. There is a couple of anomalies here. The first one is this thing on the switch housing. I guess it's some kind of a light, but the provisions for it being a full light are not really there. I just don't understand it, so I'm gonna have to take it off. And of course that also means I'm gonna be missing that little piece that goes there, which is just fantastic. This is pretty junked up. I'm not sure. Hopefully I can get that cleaned up, or perhaps pulling off another fan. I know the Hampton Bay Harbor Light ceiling fan used a very similar switch cap, but the one I have is white, so that wouldn't help me. It's kind of a shame that this is in such crummy condition, because these wood housing fans are kind of a rare breed. There weren't too many of them made, and ceiling fans from this era are getting tossed out left and right, so whichever ones were made are becoming very scarce as it is. The wood housing itself is in really nice condition somehow, so if it comes down to it, I may just have to replace the switch housing. I may have to replace the irons too, because they're pretty junked up and they look kind of crummy in person, quite frankly. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. I'm going to try to repair it the best I can. Let's see here. The fan, I don't think it was ever cleaned. You can see the blades with plenty of dust caked in there. Actually, this one's even worse. This is probably the worst of them all. It had this relatively lengthy string tied onto it, so I'm guessing this was hung somewhere well out of reach. So even if this was owned by the rare breed that likes to clean their fans, it's probably impractical to do so with any frequency. So the other anomaly here is this atrocious wiring, and I always see some of the worst wiring jobs on these fans that have more downrods. Yeah, honestly, we're just gonna toss this wiring because I ain't got time for this. I would like to keep these tags that say what the wires are, though I think what I'm gonna do, yeah, I'm just gonna probably go into the switch housing and replace the wires because they're so screwed up. This was like just regular appliance cord that was on there. Looks to be 314 maybe. So does it have any? Does not seem to have any indicators on it anywhere. So I guess we'll never know. All right. So next thing I gotta do in order to get this usable for a test is get inside the switch housing and see what the wiring scheme is, and eventually we're probably going to rewire it. But just so I can make sure that it works before I spend any amount of time trying to make it look good again. Ah, this looks like it's one of those, it is, it's one of those all-in-one switch housings, where this isn't like a cap that comes off, it's just a solid piece. Now, I didn't really want to use this with a light because I just didn't want to, but looks like we may have to, unless I could get screws that fit in all three of those places, but that's pretty unusual. And, of course, it has to have one of these stupid things in there, which is going to make rewiring it so fun. Now everything looks to be okay in there. It's kind of cramped, but whatever. Let's see, there's actually dust inside of here, which is kind of odd. It is a 1.5/3 microfarads capacitor, which those are kind of low values. But everything looks to be okay in here, so we'll plug this back in. And you know what, just for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and remove this light kit thing. Why would you put tape over this? And now it's occurring to me, even if I wanted to use it with a light, I really couldn't, because this, well, I guess I could just get a new kit, but this thing is, I don't know what, I guess this is just remnants of what the light was at one point, I don't know. Okay. Alright, this should be good enough for the test. I guess, and my concern is I won't be able to, if I cut the downrod to the length that I want, the wires that are currently here are not going to be long enough, because I want it to be a 6-inch downrod, and I think these wires would probably not even go to the top. So, I'm also noticing that there's no ground here, and I don't see it grounding on the brackets, so that's a little peculiar. Okay. Interesting. Well, I guess I'll have to redo the wiring now. Or, no, I know what I'll do. I'll just follow the same crummy wiring pattern that was in here. I'll tape a piece of wire into the middle of the downrod. Okay, so let me just set this over here for the moment. Now, next thing I want to do is cut the downrod, and I know some people find that to be kind of deplorable, and in a lot of cases I wouldn't disagree, but there's really nowhere I have to hang a fan that's this long, and this downrod is pretty crummy anyways, so we're going to just go ahead and cut this. So I'm going to not do that on video because that's kind of boring. I'll pick up the video again once it's cut. Okay, the downrod has been cut, and I drilled new holes in it so we can have the ball rest in there. I know the cut's not straight, but it doesn't really matter because the holes are, so it's still going to hang level. Now I'm not sure if this side was originally cut or if this was from the factory. It doesn't look completely level. See, there's kind of a defect in the cut right there. And the holes are certainly not seemingly original. Unless, of course, this could also be wear from if the fan was wobbling. And this is why you really don't want to have a wobbling fan. Over time, let's say the fan was hanging like this on an angle. If the thing is swaying like this all the time, it does eventually, you know, after 20 or 30 years, start to wear down. And that's what this anomaly in the hole could be. So, you know, it's just a word of caution about fans that wobble. But anyways, that's ready to go. Now, I did notice on the old Downrod, or I guess it's the same Downrod, the ball is cracked, which is another indication that this thing was not in good balance, if it was putting a lot of stress on the ball. So I'm going to pull this off of here, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use this or not. I would definitely won't use this in the permanent installation if I do end up putting this somewhere, but I'm thinking that just by nature of the way this works, the weight is pressed down here in the center, and it's going to be kind of held together by the socket that it's sitting in. So I think, all things considered, it's probably safe for testing, and I'm going to evaluate it later. I think I probably have another ball somewhere, but we'll do this for now, just because I don't have. I think the other ball I have is a 1-inch, and this is a 3/4, so it wouldn't help us anyways. So I'm going to turn this over here, put a cloth down so we don't damage this any more than it already is. And here's the moment of truth about the wiring. Yeah, it's not long enough. So let me go grab. I'll go grab some wire scraps here and we'll fix that. Actually, I probably should turn off the camera while I look for these things. Here's a set of ceiling fan wire leads, and this is what I'll be putting in the fan eventually. I'll pull these 3 out and put new ones in, but just for testing purposes, and this is going to be really a mess, but I'm going to go ahead and wire these. And we're not going to use that because there's nothing connected to this, so I'm just going to go ahead and cover this up because we don't need it right now. Hopefully this will still, I think that'll be okay. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to connect, make some connections. I gotta see if we have, I don't have exactly what I'm wanting. Oh, here we go. Well, this isn't ideal, but it'll work just for the test. And this is actually nicer wire. This is copper wire. What's in the fan is aluminum or tin or whatever it is. It's not very good quality. Okay. So now let's get the downrod in place. It's going to be kind of a wiry freak show getting all this back into alignment here. I'm not sure which, I guess I really should have re-drilled this because that's kind of crummy. I'm going to put this side in here because I can tighten it with the set screws and kind of avoid that situation there. In all due reality, if I'm really going to install this, I probably should get a new downrod because this one's really crummy. But if it comes down, so we'll just make another cut and get rid of that crummy side. So let's get these wires fed through here. This is always a pain in the rear. And of course I have to be careful because where I cut it, it's kind of, you know, it's not a nice clean cut. It's got some shards to it. And this is going to be kind of a wiry freak show inside the electrical box, but again, it's just a temporary test setup, so it doesn't really matter. Make sure these definitely aren't going to come out as I feed them in here. Hopefully there's not so much wire in here that I can't get the bar through. So we'll try to do that now. Let's see if we can get this to go through. Oh, good. And I'm sure somebody in the comments box with no videos of showing how to do it better is going to tell me that's not the right way to expand the pen. And that's fine, you're entitled to do that. I have a delete comments button on my computer. So I'm going to tighten this up now. This screw is a little bit stripped, so I think I may replace it at some point. And just to show you, it's kind of really loose in here because of that obnoxiously large hole. So at least on this end of it I can tighten the set screws and kind of avoid it being loose. Now it's perfectly tight. Now the switch housing is loose, but I'm going to just deal with that for now. I'm noticing that this housing has quite a resonance to it for sound, so hopefully this isn't a noisy fan, but I have a feeling it may be. So this crazy thing, which is broken, I'm going to slip over the wires. And it's not going to go on because I'm not really sure why, actually. There it goes. I don't really like the way this works, but admittedly nothing's going to happen to it. So I'm going to go grab the mounting bracket just so I can show you how I don't think it's going to be an issue. So here's the mounting bracket, and the way this works is, I believe this is a vaulted ceiling adapter. I'm not entirely certain, but this slides on here. Yeah, it looks like this would have been, maybe could have been some kind of a vaulted ceiling type thing. But anyways, it slides in here like this, and it holds the fan this way. So really, any pressure that's applied to this ball is kind of inwards. So it's not going to pull it apart or really permit that thing to split apart in its entirety. So we're going to go with it like this for now. And I don't think it'll be a problem for the test, at least. eventually I'll do something better. Once you get a new ball or reinforce it with some type of an epoxy or what have you. But for now, this will work. So at this point, the fan is now ready for testing, and this video is probably kind of longer than I expected it to be. So what I'm going to do is, I guess I'll break this project up into series. So this will have been part 1, preparing for testing. Now we'll do part 2, the initial hang and test. Part 3 is going to be, well, actually there's no point in predicting it, because for all I know something's going to happen and then we'll have to have more parts or whatever. So that's it for now. Next video is going to be hanging it and running it.